So hello everyone, welcome to this session on Positivist Case Study. Uh, I hope that you learned a lot about doing Positivist Case Study in this session, as I see many issues in thesis by students. Hopefully we can resolve those issues together. First, after this lecture, you'll learn to distinguish between a positivist theory and an interpretivist theory. You learn when it's appropriate to use case study, and you'll learn different approaches to case study and when to use them. You learn the roles of literature and data analysis in case study. You learn how to collect data and how to analyze data. So we have different paradigms in research: positivism, interpretivism, and postmodernism. We have different methodologies: case study, field survey, lab experiment, and so on and so forth. This class is about positivist case study, but you also see many interpretivist case study in the literature as well. But our focus is on positivist case study. Why our focus is on this paradigm and this methodology? First of all, the majority of our students use case study as the methodology for their theses. And second, most of the top papers that are published in the top journals, they are, positivist. They belong to this paradigm. So you need to know them, this paradigm, so that you can understand those papers in the literature. So what is a positivist theory? The outcome of any thesis, any studies, the academic outcome is a validated theory, most of the, usually. So you want to have a theory at the end, and a theory is relationships, one relationship or many relationship among, two or more constructs. Interpretivist, another paradigm, they believe that these constructs can be anything, these relationships can be anything. But positivism believe that the relationships must be falsifiable. That means you can reject that relationship between two constructs using empirical data, using observation, using experience, using any method that you can gather data about, gather facts about, and then try to refute the suggested proposition. Okay, we have 5 types of positivist outcome. That means that when I read your thesis, I would like to see one of these, outcome if you're taking the positivist case study approach, for example. First, a variance theory. In variance theory, you have several constructs that are measurable. You can assign a high or low value to them, and the arrows mean that there is a kind of causal or correlational relationship between these constructs. That means if you increase x1, y will be increased if you control for other variables. If you increase x2, y will be decreased if you control for other x's here. This is the most common outcome in in the top MIS journals, and it's the focus of this presentation as well. Process theory is the second outcome. It's rarely seen in top journals, but it exists there. These kind of outcome, you can find them in top journals as well. This outcome is about existing processes, sequence of events or sequence of actions. So you would try to figure out, for example, when you try to when you bump into an IT attack, what an organization does. For example, they first do this, then this, then this. Or what happens to an organization when it's under attack? First this happens to this organization, then this, then this. So note that this is about existing processes. You're not suggesting what should be done. What should be done is opinion. It's it's sort of a kind of consultation report. You try to figure out what has been done or what was done, rather than providing suggestion of what should be the sequence of actions. The third type of theory is called taxonomy theory. You try to identify the attributes of a new phenomenon. Assume that blockchain is very new, is 2009, so everyone is interested in blockchain. You want to find different attributes of this phenomenon. You want to categorize blockchains into different categories, so you have some understanding of these blockchain. These attributes later can be turned into these constructs, and you can find relationship between them. So variance theory cannot be easily done without having taxonomy theory. There must be a kind of paper that suggests these constructs, these attributes of things in the world. There are two other types of theory that that I won't discuss in this session. The first type is system theory. Is sort of like a variance theory, but there is a kind of causal loop, or there are several causal loops here. And there is a lag in between the constructs. That means when x1 is improved, x1 is increased, x2 is increased after a while. And after a while, x3 is increased, after a while, y, then x4, then x5, and that results in increasing the value of x1 itself. So everything gets back to the same construct, has an effect on the same construct. The fifth type of positivist design theory is is something like this. You try to provide prescriptions to as contributions to the scholars all over the world. You would say that we have a kernel theory based on the literature. Our goal is to improve y1 and y2. In the literature, we know that x1 and x2 can increase y1, x2 can increase y2, x3 can also increase y2. So I have a kind of kernel theory. Now, based on this kernel theory, I provide these prescriptions, and these prescription 1 increases x1, prescription 2 improves x2, prescription 3 improves x3, and this is my design science theory. There are different ways to think about design science theory. This is how a positivist will look at a design science theory. I don't discuss again these two theories in this session. Okay, now let's have some exercise so that we understand. You can check yourself if you learn things, So the first question is, what kind of theory is this? This is, a table created by Strong and Volkov. I would like to see your answers in the chat section. Okay, this is a taxonomy theory. You see these writers, these authors, they try to find various types of misfit that happens during an enterprise system implementation. Functionality misfit, data misfit, usability misfit, role misfit, control misfit, and they provide a definition for them. So this is called a taxonomy theory. How about this one? What kind of theory is this? Exactly. So this is a variance theory because you have constructs that are measurable. You can assign high or low values to this. Perceived usefulness can be high or low. And there is you would say that, okay, increasing this will increase intention to use. Increasing perceived ease of use will increase intention to use the technology. Okay, what kind of theory is this one? Again, this is a variance theory, but it's just verified, using data. Here it says that increasing intellectual alignment will increase IT alignment, and increasing IT alignment will increase financial performance. And in reality, they have found empirical support for these two relationships. You can see that they are sort of supported here, but this relationship between intellectual alignment and financial performance is not supported by the data. So again, we have a variance theory here. What kind of theory is this one? Okay, this is not a theory at all. As you can see here, it calls it a strategic alignment model. You have some constructs here, skills, processes. Some of them you cannot even assign high or low value to them. What does processes mean here? Uh, is it existence of processes? What does that mean? So that's another one issue with this. The other issue is that these uh, arrows, they don't have a meaning. They don't mean correlation. They don't mean uh, causation. They don't mean sequence of events or sequence of action. They don't have any meanings. So that's why this is called just a model. Or perhaps it would be better to just call it a framework. The things that you need to think about when you want to think about strategic alignment. So it's just a model, it's not a theory. What kind of theory is this one? So this is a system theory. This is a system dynamic theory. We have causal loops here. You can see here that this causal loop is reinforcing. That means increasing a variable means this variable is going to be increased even more because of other things, because of this causal loop. But this one is balancing. That means that increasing a variable here means that in the next cycle, that variable is going to be, have a lower value. So this is a causal loop. Okay. Do you have any questions? Let me check the chat section. Okay. I don't see any questions here. So next time you see this, that means I will read your question in the chat section and I will answer them. Okay, let's go to the next section. So I would like to just give you more details about variance theory now, as this is the focus of this paper, this session. So first of all, we know that constructs must be measurable. You need to be able to assign high or low, 0 or 1, yes or no, or some kind of numeric value to those constructs. For example, IT management is not a construct. IT management quality, IT management effectiveness is a construct because you can assign high or low value to them. And the positivist variance theory has relationships that are either causal or correlational. Improving X1 means Y will be improved. Improving X2 means Y will be, the value of Y will be decreased. And you can have various types of variance theory. You can just have two constructs with one relationship, three constructs with two relationships, four constructs, three relationships. I have 9 constructs and 9 relationships. So there are various, different numbers of constructs and relationship in a variance theory. It's based on, the logical reasoning that you provide for those relationships. What is important is that if you want to create a variance theory or you want to validate it, you need to provide 3 outcomes academic outcome, 3 products in your thesis, and it can be in different chapters of your thesis. First, it would be always great to have a nomological model, just what you saw here. A positively influence B, C moderates the relationship between A and B, D negatively influence B, and we have some control variables. And each of these constructs that you see here, you need to have a list of constructs either in the body of the thesis or at the, in the appendix that explains what these things belong to. I'm going to explain that, provide a definition, how you measured this construct, and provide some support from the literature or interviews. You also need to have a second table called list of relationships, that for each relationship that you see here, you need to provide it there. You need to explain what kind of influence you need to, you have, in between A and B. A positively influenced B here, and it's a causal relationship. And you need to provide reasons using literature or interview to support that A increases B. You need to provide a kind of construct in between the two, such as F, that you would say that improving A will improve F, and improving F will improve B. But you don't see F here. F is not measured by your, by you. You just want to mention it as, a reason. And then you also try to provide some support from the interview or literature, as well as data analysis. You want to be able to support or reject this hypothesis using data analysis. So this is, in a nutshell, in this slide, you see everything that you need to create in your thesis if you want to provide a variance theory. Note that if you don't provide a measurement for these constructs, if you don't provide, a kind of correlational influence between the two, then you cannot call this a positivist theory, because it's just, it's not falsifiable. So keep that in mind. Measurement and influence is important. If you don't provide these measurements, these influence, then you can call your theory an interpretive theory. And this is a different story. You need to do so many different things for that. Another important thing is that if you don't provide these F in your thesis, in the paper, then you don't have a theory. It's just a model. So take this seriously. This F is very important as for reason. I see that many students, they just say that, okay, that paper said that A will positively influence B. We don't care that, it's not a theory. You need to go to that paper, read it, and then figure out what F is suggested in that paper, and then quote it in your thesis. So keep that in mind. These different Fs that you need to provide for different relationships is quite important. Okay, what is a construct in a variance theory? All constructs are often related to one unit of analysis. So you would hear this unit of analysis a lot. And that unit of analysis can be, different things from construct to another construct. For example, if you have a construct called IT unavailability. IT unavailability, you can assign a high or low value, how much the systems are not unavailable. They are unavailable for 3 days per year, or 1 day per year, or 1 hour per year, or 2 weeks per year. So you have a construct, you can assign high or low value, but you also need to specify what this construct belongs to. So, and constructs are properties of a thing or a class of thing in this world. In this case, IT unavailability can be a construct of a property of an IT resource, or it can be a property of an organization. So you always need to identify what this construct belong to. This is a property of what thing in this world? So examples are organizations like Heineken, Shell, ING, divisions of those organizations, projects, groups, and individuals. And with that, you are telling me as the reader that my theory is a theory about organization. My theory is a theory about individuals. My theory is a theory about groups. If that's the case, and this must be the case for most of you, is that you need to have the same class, the same unit of analysis for all these constructs. In reality, these can be different. You can have an individual level use of a technology and organizational level use of a technology. We call them multi-level theory, but measuring those kind of theories is too difficult for you. You only have 4 months. So when you create constructs, keep in mind that you want all the constructs to be about the same unit of analysis, the same class. And as a reader, I need to see this organization in the definition. That's another important thing. I need to see that organization, that individual or project in the definition that you provide in your thesis. And these measurements must be about organization's IT resource or an IT resources measurement for an IT resource based on what class you identify for that theory. So when you try to label a construct, when you want to choose a name for a construct, again, keep in mind that you need to be able to assign a high or low value to that. IT infrastructure is not a construct name. Things are not constructs. Building IT infrastructure is not a construct, it's an action. IT infrastructure investment, this is an attribute, a measurable attribute of IT infrastructure, a measurable attribute of thing in this world or a class of thing in this world. Investment value is is an attribute, a measurable attribute of IT infrastructure again. So these can be called construct. This is another common issue with our students. They provide things or actions as the name of the constructs. In constructs, definition is quite important. I would suggest you to start the definition with the degree to which or the extent to which. For example, IT infrastructure scalability is the degree to which the IT infrastructure of an organization can be changed easily to support more users. Maintenance cost, again, the degree to which. So try to start your definition with degree to which, to the extent to which, so that you are sure that a value of high or low can be assigned to that construct. So now, let me give you an example. Assume that we have a theory called IT unavailability, a theory about IT unavailability, and we believe that increasing IT unavailability will increase business disruption, and increasing business disruption will increase a strategic risk in the organization. So these are constructs. A construct is either an attribute or a property of a thing in this world. You see here, this business disruption, it is a business disruption that occurs to an organization. And there are 2 ways to measure that: duration and geographical span of business disruption. How many locations are affected as a result of this IT unavailability. For unavailability, you see, this is IT resource, but I need to call this organization's IT resource so that I have the same unit of analysis. Then you have unavailability here. And you would say that, okay, how can I measure IT unavailability? I need 2 attributes, 2 measures for that, or 1 measure at least. Frequency of unavailability, how many times the IT resources were unavailable in this organization in the last year. What was the duration of those IT unavailability? 3 days, 1 hour. So whenever you try to create a construct, you need to be able to find an attribute for that construct. You need to be able to find a class of things for that construct so that you can say that, oh, I have a construct. So here, let me show you this case. This is what I would like to see you in your thesis. This is the construct. It belongs to organization's IT resource. This is the definition. That's how I can measure this, or how I measured them. I have some support for this construct or the measurement using the literature. And you can sometimes also specify the boundary. You can say that for some, my theory does not work for a downtime that is longer than a year, and IT unavailability that is longer than a year. So keep this in mind. And you also need to provide a second table of relationships. Increasing IT unavailability will positively influence business disruption. You provide some examples here, but don't forget that you need to also provide that F, which is not provided in this case. But you need to provide these two tables. And if there is a boundary, you need to provide it. For example, you would say that a 5-minute downtime that resulted in bankruptcy cannot be explained by my theory. So if you can do it. But most of our students, they are not, at that level that can come up with these different boundaries. But try. That's how you get, a higher grade in a thesis. So now let's have an exercise here. This figure shows a great interpretive theory. What is wrong with this research from, a positivist view? Any ideas? So let's check some of these constructs that we see here. We have client satisfaction. I can assign a high or low value to that. We have reputation. I can assign high or low value to that. Numbers, variety, I can do that. But we have here IT personnel career development. This is a process. It's not a construct. I cannot assign a high or low value to this. Or here it says client vendor relationship. What does that mean? Does that mean client vendor relationship strength? So in naming these constructs, you need to always keep in mind that we want something that we can assign high or low value to that. Another issue with this theory from a positive point of view is this definition. What does define mean here? We don't care about defined, help, build, enabled, things like that. We want positively influence, negatively influence, so that we can measure them against a quantitative data or even a qualitative data. So these are the issues that that can be stated about this theory from a positivist stance. So measurable constructs and relationships that are not causal or correlation. So what is wrong with this theory? This is created by a student. It was a draft model. Any ideas? Same issues. 5G technology, what does that mean? Does that mean 5G technology exists or do not exist? If that's the case, then you can call this, a construct. Otherwise, you cannot call it. But in this case, reading the rest of the items that wants to be used to perhaps measure this construct or state as dimension of these constructs. Here it shows that it's called, for example, here you see faster speeds, lower cost. See, this is not a construct. Speed is a construct. Cost is a construct. Latency, reliability, these are constructs. So this student needs to remove these and then say that increasing the speed will increase, for example, security level or safety level. And here again, we have a structure, standards, processes. We don't know how this can be measured. So try to have constructs that are measurable. So how to change this? You can say that we have technology speed, technology cost, and this will be improved, performance. And 5G is just, is implemented in some cases as a prescription, for example, to increase speed, decrease cost, and latency. Okay. You have two constructs. This is the relationship. Increasing IT investment will positively influence firm performance, firm's financial performance. What kind of what Fs can you suggest in between the two so that improving IT investment will improve F and improving F will improve firm's financial performance? Remember, I told you that if you don't provide this F, you have a model, you don't have a theory. Any ideas in the chat section? One idea can be improving IT investment will improve employees' productivity, and improving employees' productivity will improve process productivity, business process performance measures, and improving that will improve firms' financial performance. IT investment, another example, IT investment improves information systems, but you see information systems, what? Effectiveness, information system, what? So when you try to provide this F, you need to also keep in mind that, what kind of constructs, in a way, measurable construct you can provide here. But, you are on the right track. That was a good answer. So don't forget this. You need to provide these F, otherwise you don't have a theory. Let me see if there are any questions. Okay, there are no questions here. Let's go to the next section. Okay, we also have process theory and taxonomy theory. Our students, I know that some of them are also interested in developing these kind of theories. How can you create a process theory using case study, for example? You need to identify existing processes not known to the literature. Not how should it be done. Again, we are not going to provide consultancy report. We just want to add to the knowledge of the human being that how things can be done. You study case one, existing process in case one. You say, oh, it's event one, event two, event three. Then you do that in case two. Then you do that in case three. And then you generalize them to this theory, which is at the higher level of abstraction. Academic outcome is this, that event one happens, then event two, and after that event three. Let's see an example. For example, in the first case of Khmer, crew scheduling system outage resulted in the crews, pilots, cabin crews, not having the schedules, and as a result of that, a flight delayed or flight cancellation occurred. In the case of American Airlines, the iPad app in the cabin crew had issues, so it was not available. As a result, pilots could not view flights, plan, and updates, and that resulted in flight delay. In the case of United Airlines, reservation system went down. As a result, the staff could not issue boarding pass, luggage tags, and so on and so forth, and therefore the flights were grounded. Three different processes. I will turn them into IT unavailability, then information incapability, and then business disruption. this can be a kind of academic outcome. So you abstract them to a sequence of events or actions. With regard to taxonomy theory, I mentioned that you want to provide categories of things, and you can only usually create these taxonomies when there is a new phenomenon that literature doesn't talk about. So you want to find the attributes of that things, you want to write them all down, and then figure out all the values that that attribute can get. Value 1 when value 2, for example, attribute 1. Attribute 2 can get value 3, value 4, value 5, and value 6. Attribute 3 can get yes or no. Then based on these values, you create categories of that things. And then perhaps you can also create super categories. So for example, this student of mine, he worked on distributed ledger technology. Blockchain is another perhaps wrong word for this. So he has found all the features, design features for DLTs. You see all these attributes. Then he has found some, values for them, and then some categories: public DLT, consortium DLT, and private DLT. And each of these have their different values for these different attributes. So this is called the taxonomy theory. And you usually use them when there is a new phenomenon. Any questions here? Okay, no. Okay. Now the question, you know what positivist theory is. The question now is that when you need to use a case study to validate that theory. So we use data analysis or content analysis for case study. You can also use regression, covariance-based SCM as part of a field survey. You can use ANOVA T-student as part of an experiment. Which approach you need to take to validate a theory? So what happens, how do you usually, start, validating a theory, a proposal? What happens is that most of the time, you're affiliated with an organization, you have an internship, or for some reason you are interested to improving Y. So either the organization wants to improve a variable in the organization, or you are interested, in Y. So, and in your proposal, in your chapter 1, you claim that Y is important because of this, that. Usually mention some factors after Y, that if you improve Y, for example, IT investment, firm performance will be improved, employee performance will be improved. And you talk about them in the proposal. After that, you do a literature review to figure out the antecedents of Y. What factors, increasing what fact, improving what factors will improve Y. So you try to figure out, to extract those antecedents using a literature review. Two things can happen here. Either you don't find any antecedents, or there are a few. Whenever this happens, I tell a student, okay, I don't believe this happened. You need to go to adjacent literature, neighboring literature, and do a study there. For example, if it's about blockchain is trying to improve trust. It tries to improve transparency. Do the literature, go and review the literature of, trust and transparency. Perhaps you can find some constructs there. If after all these you have found that, oh, we don't have, any antecedents, the phenomena is so new, then you have to develop the theory. You need to identify these X's, these constructs. Then you need to go for exploratory case study or grounded theory. However, if using the literature, you have been able to find all these antecedents, then you need, or some antecedents, then you need to go for testing the theory. if you want to test that theory, so why x1, x2, x10 is already in your, they are already in your literature review. You have found them in the literature. Here, you need to go for either explanatory case study, field survey, or experiment. But which of these? So theory development, first of all, is quite, I guess, easy. For example, assume that you want to figure out the antecedents of AI, artificial intelligence maturity in the organization. You go and study case one. You find X1, X2, and X3 in case one, X1, X3, and X4 in another case, and some other construct in another case, and then you generalize them to the factors that can influence AI maturity. X1, X2, X3, and X4. So this is how theory development usually works. But if you want to test the theory, the question is which approach you need to take. You need to show the theory to someone who is experienced, either your supervisor or the company supervisor, someone who knows the domain quite well. Then he can say, so if he or she says, I cannot think of other antecedents, I believe you have found everything, then you need to answer one question. Do X1, X2, and X3, all of them are introduced in one paper? Then you have no choice. You need to go for another study. But if, or you can try to figure out some antecedents of X1, X2, and X3 if you don't find them in the, you haven't found them in the literature. But if you have found them in different papers, then you're good. You need to conduct a field survey with a questionnaire and a sample that is larger than perhaps around 100. So you cannot go for an explanatory case study with just 2 or 3 or 6 people, six sample size of 6. When do you go for an explanatory case study? First, you have reasons to believe that Y, X, or X2 cannot be measured in a reliable way using questionnaire. Because in questionnaire, you usually ask 1 to 3 questions about each construct to figure out the value of that construct in that case for that unit of analysis. So measuring that would be quite, unreliable. You have, literature that supports that. Or there are rare cases that these relationships do not hold. Then you have no choice. You can say that, okay, we have a rare case, I can go for explanatory case study. I cannot measure it very well. I have to dig in and have a lot of interviews to measure, to have a good value for Y. Or the supervisor says that, oh, there are several missing antecedents here. We have X10, X9 that are not mentioned here. In these cases, you go for an explanatory case study. And your goal is to disconfirm the theory. So you would say that, oh, there are missing constructs here, or these relationships do not work. This is your goal. So after an explanatory case study, for example, you figure out X1 is supported, X2 is not supported. You show that using a different, icon for the arrow, a different symbol. You figure out perhaps that X3 is supported in an opposite way. It's completely different than what you suggested in your hypothesis. And you may find even new constructs or new relationship between constructs. So these are, the kind of outcome that you would like to see as a result of an explanatory case study. So let's have some, questions here. Okay, I give you around 30 seconds to read this and then suggest a right approach for validating this theory. Do you have any ideas? Any answers here? So first of all, you have found each antecedent in one paper. That shows that you have a theory. That means you don't need to do an exploratory case study. So that one is removed. There is a theory here. Then we have some antecedents here, and each of them are in one paper. So good. I can go for testing this theory. I don't need to go and find another theory. The homological model does not exist in any paper. But your company supervisor cannot even come up with a missing antecedent. So everything here, if a missing antecedent was there, then you would say that, oh, there's some missing antecedent here. I can go for an explanatory case study. But here, no one can come up with a missing antecedent. So it's better to go for a field survey. And by field survey, I mean something like this. See, that's what you need to do. You need to design a questionnaire with 3 questions for each construct. You see, for example, shared language, for example, is somewhere here, is a dimension of this construct. There are 3 questions for that. Shared cognition, there are 4 questions for that. For structural social capital, we have 3 questions for information reaction, and here we have 2 questions for structural positioning. Try to have 3 questions. That's very important. And then you send them the survey to different, distribute the survey to all CIOs in this case. This is perhaps the unit of analysis, CIO TMT. So these authors, they send it to 1,000 CIOs, and only 206 CIOs returned the response. So the percentage rate is around 20%, which is okay, in top journals. And then PLS is used for data analysis. This is quite easy to do. Don't think that PLS analysis is quite difficult. And you see that these are supported, and these relationships are not supported. So that's the kind of mentality that you need to have for this kind of studies. How about this one? First of all, it says that you have created a new theory. So it's not going to be an exploratory case study. The previous study claims that measuring alignment is mostly reliable if executives are interviewed and cross-checked. So this construct that you see here, alignment, cannot be easily measured using a field survey questionnaire. So you have enough, support from the literature for that. You cannot easily ask them to just give a value from 1 to 7, like what the previous study did. So, and you need to double check everything here. You have no choice but to go for an explanatory case study here, because you need interviews to find a value of high or low for alignment in one case, and in another case, and in another case if it's a multiple case study. Okay, so you can see here that these authors, they were not able to find relationship between these constructs as the moderators, but they were not able even to disconfirm, to reject the theory, because they have had 9 cases. Whenever alignment was high, communication was also high. When alignment was low, communication was also low. So they could not reject this hypothesis, so they have to support it. If they could see that when alignment is high, communication is low, for 2 or 3 cases, then they could say that, oh, this relationship is not supported by data, it's rejected by the data actually. Okay, so that's how you need to measure this concept. This is the kind of table that you need to create at the end. So let's do this exercise, and then we go for a kind of short break. So there is a high pressure for having a rapid, high quality decision process in high velocity environment in a semiconductor industry. The literature does not suggest how this, rapid decision making can happen. How can we increase the decision making speed? You have a pool of CEOs. What methodology do you use? So you see here, you don't see any theories, huh? There are no theories. What should be the answer? After literature review, you don't have any theories. It's an exploratory case study or a grounded theory. So you see here in this case, Eisenhardt, he has a decision speed construct. He tried to use qualitative data to measure this decision speed. In each case, for example, she had 7 or 8 cases, and the decision speed was from 3 months to 5 years. So she had this from the interviews, and in the interviews from the qualitative data, she also found new constructs like real-time information existence. And then she was also able to find a score for each of these. And that score had a positive relationship with decision. That means when this one was high, decision speed was also high. So that means there is a kind of positive relationship between the two. And she also found support from data and from the literature that improving real-time information will improve accelerated cognitive processing, and that will improve decision speed. These are the F that I mentioned for you. So she introduced a new theory here. These constructs were not, we didn't know about them at the beginning of the study. The literature would not talk about them. The decision speed was not discussed in the literature. So these constructs were found as a result of analyzing the interviews with the people. So this is another quite interesting method for some of you. So keep that in mind. Okay, I guess I have 1 or 2 questions, and then we can go for a break. What's your methodology here? So first of all, we have been able to find all antecedents of cloud adoption intention. So we don't need an exploratory case study here. Each antecedent is found in one paper. So the great thing is that you're not all in one paper. I don't need to go for another study. The nomological model does not exist in any paper. Again, I don't need to go for another study. But your company supervisor believes this model does not work for the financial industry. She or he would say that there's some other missing constructs here. What methodology would you use? So here, if you go for a field survey, you only check these relationships. You cannot find those missing constructs. Of course, you can go for, for a field survey, but it's better to go for an explanatory case study where you can find new constructs and some sort of, relationship that are disputed here. This is the goal. You want to ensure, you want to prove to everyone that, the literature was wrong. The literature was wrong to have this. The literature missed this. The literature missed this, or they missed having reliability. Okay, this is the last one. Yes, in explanatory case study, we use interviews. In exploratory case study, we use interviews. In field survey, we don't have interviews. We only have questionnaires and some, values, scores for each construct from 1 to 7. Okay. What approach would you use here? So here you see you have 2 constructs, but there are missing constructs in between the 2. You want to find constructs in between the ransomware attack and strategic risk. Exactly. You need to use an exploratory case study. And this is done by Marnik. He has found ways to measure the severity of the ransomware attack using 2 dimensions. And for each dimension, he tried to provide some more antecedents. And you see, he has found some constructs that can moderate this relationship. So it's an exploratory case study, or it can also be called, a grounded theory. You don't need to know the difference between the 2 for your thesis. If there is a problem, just send me an email. Okay. You can discuss this yourself. In this case, we have all constructs in one theory, in one paper. What can you do with this? You cannot go for a field server because these relationship and constructs are already existing in one paper. So what can you do here? What you can do is to try to find the antecedents of these 3 constructs. So it's sort of a kind of hybrid case study where you try to explain these parts are explanatory. You try to figure out if they work in the case of audit agilities, because agility is and constructs related to agility are related, or they exist, in the area of software engineering. But for auditing, we are not sure if these 3 would work good enough. So not only you check this as an explanatory case study, you also go for an exploratory case study to find other antecedents of these constructs. So that's another approach that can be taken. Okay, so when you're back, we continue. Let's have a 5 minutes of break. I stop with, recording. I pause the video. So you use explanatory case study when you want to check causal relationships, and your goal is to test the theories. You use exploratory case study when you need to even define the questions, you want to propose new constructs, and at the end, you want to build a new theory. So these are, your goals. These can be your goals for either explanatory case study or exploratory case study. So one question is asked here is that why is a positivist case study mostly used by a student? Or in reality, why a positivist explanatory case study is mostly used by a student? Is it easier than other kinds of research? Yeah, it can be way easier during the interviews because you already have a theory, you already have the construct. With an exploratory case study, you have to go and build new constructs. But most of our students, they don't know enough theories. They don't have the theoretical sensitivity to build theories. So it would be difficult for them to come up with constructs from the data and from the, from any kind of data that they have. So exploratory case study, grounded theory would be quite difficult for these students. On the other hand, they usually have 7, 8, possible interviewees. The internships, the company supervisor usually give them this amount of, interviewees. So they have access to 7, 8 interviews, not to 100 to or 150 respondents. Therefore, they go for a positivist explanatory case study. They try to create a theory. Then for each theory, they can easily have a questionnaire to just ask the question to get a score for that construct. So then also, although they need to ask some other question, but measure, writing down the data analysis section would be way easier in comparison to other, types of. So if you go for a field survey, for example, you need to run regression, PLS analysis, things like that. And because of that, the students would say that, oh, this is way easier. I can just check that if the two constructs, if both of them are high, if one of them is high and the other one is low, I can say that this is disconfirmed. That's all. So you don't need, a high statistical analysis knowledge, to be able to do, the data analysis of this. And it also create networks for you. You interview 7 people. So that can be quite interesting. It enlarges the network of people around you. So these are the reasons I believe they use it. Okay. So what is the role of literature and data analysis here in these two types of studies? So one thing that differentiate case study from a field survey with a questionnaire is data triangulation. In case study, we usually have a sample size, low sample size, lower than 10, but it should have a data triangulation. What does that mean? That means that if here, for example, in a case like case A, for case 1, for construct A, you have found that the score for a construct is 1 out of 7, for example, or 3 out of 7. You shouldn't just be satisfied with the answer to that interview question to give a score. You also need to gather more data, to ask more questions, to check for secondary data, to ensure that if that person said that alignment score is 5 out of 7, that is supported by other ways. So we're going to go to the detail of this. So that's the main difference between case study and field survey in the table of constructs. Here, you usually in the field survey, you have 2 or 3 questions with a score of 1 to 7. But in a case study, when you try to measure a construct, not only you ask those questions of, that the answers are 1 to 7, but you also try to ask some open-ended questions. You gather secondary data to make sure that that value is correct. So this is that was the difference between a case study and field survey. How is that different between exploratory and explanatory case study? In an explanatory case study, you create the constructs, you define the construct, you find the measurement for the construct using the literature. So because you already have a theory. And then you just try to support the values given for each construct in a case using interviewees' quotes and the numbers that they provide as for the survey questionnaires. So The data is just provide some support for the values of those constructs in an explanatory case study. In an exploratory case study, you have some idea about the constructs and construct names, but there are several constructs that are created because of the literature. Sorry, because of the data analysis. So the data analysis will create a construct name and a definition for a construct and a way to measure that constructs. So most of these are the table of list of constructs is created using data analysis. And literature has some effect on naming the constructs, or you have some idea about constructs before doing the data analysis. How about relationships? So in a field survey, you want to figure out if A and B have a positive correlation or not. So what you do is you use data analysis. You try to reject the hypothesis by having a high p-value, for example, in regression analysis, ANOVA, or PLS. You also try to provide some reasons using the literature. But in a case study, not only you provide some, sometimes you have some quotes from the interviews to support a relationship, but your goal is to reject the hypothesis by simply finding that when A was high, B was low. And one or two cases is enough to just say that, oh, this relationship is disconfirmed. Or when A was low, B was high. Because it's positive correlation, you want, if A is high, B must be high, but in your data analysis, you have found that, oh, A is high, but B is low in one case. So then you would say that I reject this hypothesis. So that's the difference between the field survey, a questionnaire, and an interview, a case study. So with an explanatory case study, again, the relationship, the reason for the relationships, the influence, they all roots in literature. However, supporting this relationship roots in data analysis. And sometimes you may find new whys here. With an exploratory case study, the table of the list of relationships, the table of relationship is completely based on your data analysis that may be supported by literature later. So most of this is created using the data analysis. And that's why exploratory case study can be difficult. You see here, you have to create constructs. You have to provide measurement using data analysis. And then you also need to create the list of relationships, all these columns yourself. So this makes exploratory case study a little bit more difficult, but it's going to be more rewarding because you're suggesting a new theory. But if you have an explanatory case study, you already have your nomological model, you already have your constructs, table of constructs, you have your list of relationships, these three columns. You just need to fill out this data analysis result. So of course, explanatory case study would be easier. Note that even the organization of the thesis must be different between the two studies. Most of you are familiar with this organization because it's also very familiar, is also used for field survey. You have an introduction, then you have a literature review, then you have a chapter on theoretical development where you suggest your theory, the relationships, and the constructs. So, and then you suggest a methodology. After that, you write about data analysis and you suggest the result of testing that theory, if those theories are rejected or not. And after that, you describe, what's your contribution to the literature was, what is new in your theory in comparison to the literature, and then you have a conclusion. In an exploratory case study, in a grounded theory, things are different. You start with introduction, you provide a theoretical background, some sort of literature review that suggests some initial constructs, And perhaps it describes a very big ground theory just as a lens to, explain things. So it's quite, most of the time very short. Then you, in your methodology, you would say that I'm going to use exploratory case study, and I'm going to collect data from these cases, and so on and so forth. The data analysis is not about testing theory. You don't have any relationships. You don't have any construct at this stage. In this section, you suggest the constructs and the propositions, the relationship between those constructs based on the data analysis. And after that, you would say that, these constructs were new, these relationships were new, and then conclusion. So you see, things are quite, even the organization of the paper, the organization of the thesis should be different for these two types of theory. Okay, I leave this exercise to you. I just wanted to show you again that, in an exploratory case study, most of these are found using data analysis. But in an explanatory case study, where you try to test an existing theory, a theory that you created using literature review, most of these stuff are created using literature review. This is the question that I would like you to think carefully about. I give you 1 minute. So the question is that you have found a construct called alignment in the literature. The literature suggests a definition for that, the congruence between business strategy and IS strategy. And it suggested a way to measure that, 3 questions. It says that ask 3 questions from the CIO. The IS strategy is congruent, aligned with the corporate business strategy. Decision in IS planning are tightly linked with organization as a strategic plan. Our business strategy and IS strategy are closely aligned. So in a questionnaire, they just ask 3 questions. You choose a value from strongly disagree to strongly agree, from 1 to 5, for example, and you have this. But now you want to use alignment in an explanatory case study. You cannot just ask this question. Of course, you have to ask these questions from the person, but that's not enough, because this is just one source of data. You need to have data triangulation. You need to find other ways to measure this. How could you do that? This is the question. This is how you can do that. You can ask the CIO and the CEO to answer the following questions from the survey. But you want to also check if these 2 persons are in reality aligned or not. You ask the CIO to provide the top 3 priorities in IT. You ask the same question from the CEO to provide the top 3 priorities in IT. Then you check the 2 lists. If they are exactly the same, alignment is high. If there are items that there are no shared items, alignment is low, very low. If there are some items, shared items, but the priority are different, you would say that, it's medium. So not only you have a quantitative data, you also have a qualitative way with interviews to figure out if the alignment is high or low. You can also go and read the IT strategy document and extract the top IT priorities. Then you can read the business strategy document and try to extract top IT priorities, then compare them. So you see, this is called data triangulation. There are 3 different ways to figure out the value of alignment in only one case. And that's why case study has details, to just have reliable measures for constructs. Okay. How about this question? You have time to conduct 6 interviews. This is where most of our students go wrong. Would you study 6 cases and have an interview for each case, 1 interview per case, or you would study these cases and interview 2 individuals for each case? So only 3 cases, 2 interviews per case, or 6 different cases, 1 interview per case. Which one you would go for? Exactly. You would go for 3 cases, the second option, and you try to have 2 individuals interviewed because you want data triangulation, because you want reliable values of constructs, scores for those constructs in one case. Good job. So let me check if there are any questions. Okay, no. Okay, how would you do data collection in a case study? What should be the sample size? What should be the case selection criteria? And how the interview structure should look like? So in case study, the suggestion is to go for extreme sampling. What does that mean? What does extreme sampling mean? It means that if your theory in an explanatory case, if your theory is A positively influenced B, you need to have at least one case that A is very, very high and another case that A is very, very low. Or if it's an exploratory case study and you want to figure out the antecedents of B, you want to build a theory, you would go for a B that is very high in one case and you have another case that is very, very low. Then you compare the two, and then you have a higher chance of finding these antecedents or finding a relationship between the two. So of course, the more the merrier. If you can have 6 to 10 cases, it would be great. But you need to have at least one of these to make sure that you can check the existence of the to provide support for the relationships. Otherwise, it would be a little bit difficult to prove your point. Another important thing that I have seen almost 90% of the students missed is that they have some exclusion and inclusion criteria in their mind, but they don't express that in the thesis. So in your thesis, you need to explain what is a good case, why a case is appropriate to be studied. And for each case, you have 1 or 2 interviews, why that person is the right person to be interviewed. So my suggestion is that to have this table in either chapter 4 of explanatory case study or chapter 3 of your exploratory case study. You explain what each case is, you define that case, some general information, and you explain if this case fulfills the criteria for including the case in your study. You say that, yeah, we are, it's about alignment, for example, between IT and business, and this flips have been, doing that for more than 10 years. So yes. About interviews, you say that this is CIO. He was in the company for more than 5 years, so he knows enough about the IT. So that's why we can, he fulfills the criteria for being interviewed. And we also have an IT manager here. He was here for only 1 year, so I cannot build on his interviews. I need another person. So you provide all these exclusion and inclusion criteria if they are fulfilled or not. So we have a theory. Let's have an exercise here. This theory includes 3 hypotheses. How many cases you should have? Okay, high and low extreme, huh? You try, most of the time it would be difficult. High, low for this, high, low for this, and high, low for this. Of course, you may have high or low here as well, but this is the least that you want to have in one case. Okay, let's discuss data collection and sources of data, interviews, archive, secondary documents developed by the organization, like the IT strategy document, the business strategy document for the alignment study, your observation in the meetings, these all could be helpful. So I would like to show you how you need to conduct the interview. First, you need to clarify the unit of analysis. Ask the interviewee to choose only one. So if this is about alignment and this is about CIO and CEO relationship, you would ask him, okay, this is one company and this is the CIO and this is the CEO. We want to just talk about this. I don't want to talk about the previous CIOs, only about this. So the interviewer need to select only one unit of analysis in the past. This is very important because sometimes these interviews they give you different ideas about different unit of analysis. So, and you try to ask all questions. That means get scores for a construct for only that unit of analysis. So if it's about the unit of analysis, a project, you would have the interviewee to give you a name for that project. Let's call it ING project 1. And then everything that every score that you're giving me must be about that construct. And there shouldn't be a question about the second unit of analysis because this is another interview. Then, so this is the first question. The second question is about including or excluding criteria. You ask about the case, you ask about the interviewee's years of being in the department to make sure that he is right or not. If he's not the right one, just ask 1 or 2 or 3 questions and then finish the interview. Then you need to ask question about your theory. First, you need to create a scale. Even in a questionnaire, you have to do that. For quality, we have a scale like this. For agreement, like this. For frequency, something like that. You always start with the dependent variable. You ask the interviewee to give you a score from 1 to 7, 1 to 5, high or low, whatever, to the dependent variable. And then you ask why he provided that or she provided that score. As soon as 4 is given, ask the interview, why not giving the 3 points? What happened? What's wrong there? And you are hopeful that he or she provides some of these antecedents without you getting a score for them. Okay, if it's an exploratory case study, you have no idea about this. So you only need to ask about the dependent variable that you're interested in. If it's, then you can ask what was good about this? Then, hopefully you get some of these constructs and hopefully you find some missing constructs that are not provided here. Even in an explanatory case study, you try to find missing constructs. Of course, not a lot of them, but some of them. And this is the number one issue that I see in our thesis that would, I guess, degrade the thesis from the best thesis perhaps to the worst thesis that that can happen. In the interviews with the interviewee provide general statements like this. They use usually present tense. This is how they would talk. The DLT context does not fit the way organizations organize their process nowadays. So this interviewee, he does not talk about that unit of analysis that he has information with. He talks about all unit of analysis, all organizations, all DLTs. This is his opinion. We don't care about their opinions, okay? We care about facts. that interviewee needs to provide information about what he has knowledge about, what she has knowledge about. So he or she can say the DLT does not fit the way our firm organizes its processes. And it's always better to have the interview to talk in past tense. We introduced the DLT to our manager, but he hated that. He said that. So when he or she, the interview uses past tense, you're sure that he talks about one unit of analysis and about something that really happened, not something about future or not some general statement about all cases. We don't care about them, know them. You can ask them, but don't quote them in your thesis. Don't provide these, general statement and opinions there. When they say general statements, hear them, get ideas, but don't count on them for scientific decisions. So another, sometimes the issue is you, because you as the interviewer ask the wrong question. You ask the person, you can ask the person, what is the influence of X on Y? Choose between no influence, weak influence, and strong influence. Keep that in mind. You don't ask about arrows. You only ask about constructs. You have them give scores for constructs, not for arrows. If you ask about arrows, you get their opinions. We don't care about their opinions. I guess, if I were the second reader, I would give you a score of maximum 6.5, even if everything else would be, great. So you have to ask about attributes of unit of analysis, about X and Y, and they have to provide a value of 0, low, medium, high, a number, anything related to X, and another thing about Y. Then you make the decision as the scientific, scholar. You would say that, okay, X was high, Y was low, the hypothesis is disconfirmed. So keep that in mind. And then you ask for, so after asking all these questions about the constructs, you need to find data triangulation sources. Ask them to get existing documents about those scores that are given. Ask if other persons can be interviewed other than this person. So try to find other sources of data. And then after you have done everything, you need to create a case report and send it to the interview. So you provide the case info, interview one's info, transcription of the interviews, interview 2 if he agrees to share his data with interview 1, transcription, the secondary data document that you have found. Then you assume that this is the only case that you have, and you check if the theory is supported or not supported. So you need to provide all those data analysis tables, or list of relationship, list of constructs, score for constructs here in one case. So everything related to one case should be in this case report. You send this case report to the interviewee, and then you ask if anything is missing, anything should be changed. And that's all. Then the interview is done. Okay, we have another case here. What's wrong with this? What's wrong with the measurement in this thesis? What's wrong here? Exactly. He asked about the relationship and the strengths of the causal relationship between the two constructs. So but he should have asked only about this construct. But even here, inter-organizational policy agreements, this is a little bit difficult to assign a high or low value for an interviewee. So this should be also a little bit changed, this factor. Good job. How about this exercise? What's your answer to these questions? Which one is a correct research question? see here, the problem is that the question in A tries to get opinions of the people, the interviewees. The research question said, how can we motivate financial companies to use cloud? So the research question forces you to have questions in the interview that is related to this. In reality, the question should have been how cloud providers motivate financial companies use cloud. So at the moment or in the past, how did these cloud providers motivated financial companies to use cloud? Or here it says how to design a chatbot. So the thing is that you can have these questions. It's not a problem as long as you say that I am doing a design science study. I'm going to gather requirements. But if you call it an exploratory case study, explanatory case study, then this should be about facts, not opinions, about what happened, not what should happen or what would happen in future. Okay. Another question. A company hires you as an intern to do your thesis there. They want you to check the effect of possible investment in big data analytics on their organization. What is the first question you should ask? So this is the first question. Do you have data? Do you have access to completed or failed big data analytic projects? If they say no, you would say that, okay, if you don't have data about them, it would be difficult to do them. Do you want to gather requirements of this big data analytics? If they say yes, you can go for a design science study. But if they don't even know what requirements, what kind of applications they want, or there is no data on any big data analytic projects, so you don't have any facts. You have to gather opinions, and we don't care about opinions. Keep that in mind. Unless we want to design something for these people. If you want to design something for them, then you can gather their opinions. That is another story. Okay. You are designing an interview guide for the following theory developed based on the literature. You are using a hybrid case study, explanatory on the right and exploratory on the left. Which question should be asked in what order? What question would you ask? What is your first question in the interview? Find the unit of analysis, huh? Choose a project about an audit project in your mind. Let's give it a name. My next question are going to be about that project. Okay, this is question one. What is question two? The second question would be if that project fulfill the inclusion-exclusion criteria. If that person is eligible to answer questions about that project. So that would be your second question. And the third question is that first, you define audit agility according to the literature. So whenever you have explanatory case study, you define the construct first, and then you ask for a score from 1 to 7 or 1 to 6 based on the scale that you provided. If, for example, it provides 4, you would ask why you deducted 3. Why, what happened, what was good that led to 4. You try to figure out other antecedents of audit agility with the fourth question. Then you define leanness, get a value for that. For example, 6, you ask why deduct 1. What was good that that you gave a score of 6. You try to figure out the antecedents of leanness. You do the same for collaboration and responsiveness. Try to find the antecedents of these constructs. Let me see if there are no questions. Okay, data analysis. We are approaching to the end of the last section of this presentation. So, reminder, the goal of data analysis in an exploratory case study is to create a theory, create constructs, have definition for them, find a way to measure them, find relationship between those constructs, and have support for them. So this is the goal for data analysis in an exploratory case study. Reminder again, in a data analysis for an exploratory case study, you want to disconfirm, you want to reject the relationship suggested by the literature. You want to suggest new constructs. So you can see here, you want to have a table like that. Okay, this is the table of relationship. This is what we suggested in the theory. It was supported. Why? In 5 out of 6 cases, A and B had positive relationship. But we had one case that had some issues, and then you try to provide some examples. For the relationship between D and B, it was not supported. In 3 cases, a negative relationship is observed. In another 3, a positive relationship was observed. We believe G is a moderator of this relationship. When G is high, this relationship is going to be positive. If when G is low, the relationship is negative, for example. So you need to create something like this and add it to your chapter 5 of explanatory case study thesis. Okay, so these were the reminders. The first thing was develop case reports, the one that I mentioned before, that you would do after an interview, and then you return it to the interviewees so that they give you feedback. So create the case report. This is your first step of data analysis. The second step, which is perhaps the most important step, and you have to add it to your thesis as well, is this table or matrix of case constructs. You have all the cases, you have all the constructs here. You have found the scores for each constructs. Construct B is high, construct A is 3 in case 1, construct C is 0. In case 2, these are different values. So you suggest you create this table. You have done all these studies for this moment. You want something like this. So you create this thesis, this table, and then you have to do these cross case analysis. What does that mean? So if it's an exploratory case study, you generalize them to these. So these are the case reports. But if it's an explanatory case study, you read these cases and you turn them into the previous table. In both cases, you need to have these tables, both exploratory case study and explanatory case study. Okay. And here you need to avoid the common mistakes of our students. You do not try to confirm the theory, you try to disconfirm the theory. You can only reject a theory here if A is high and B is low. If A is high and B is medium, you cannot reject it easily, unless you have some other cases. So keep that in mind. And you also need to figure out what is between A and B, those Fs that I mentioned. So you need to figure them out and suggest them in the data analysis section. Okay. Then for each relationship, for example, construct A positively influence construct B, and for each case, you will explain if this is supported or not supported. And you try to provide quotes in past tense, hopefully, for each case. So here you have one construct under this So this is your section on data analysis. You have that table that I already mentioned with the scores and values at the beginning. Then you have subsection for each of these relationship. You try to provide quotes to either support it or do not support it. And at the end, you can say that we have enough reasons to believe that A positively influenced B, or we do not have enough, we have to reject this hypothesis. So this is the ending sentence for that for data analysis and that section. So what is wrong here? So this is a quote from an interviewee. In my opinion, the most important aspect is changing the culture. And this is a kind of exploratory case study. He tried to provide the gist, the essence of each sentence. Cultural change, conservatism, awareness, and training for each sentence. What's wrong here? So this is an interpretivist study. You see here, this person did not provide any values for each construct. He just tries to provide some initial codes here. What's wrong here? Again, we do not quote opinions. We want facts. Have interviewees use past tense and describe the unit of analysis. These are general things. It's as if this is a literature. It's not data about a unit of analysis in the world. That's another issue here. He has to say it was difficult to change the culture of our organization. See, it's about a unit of analysis and it's in past tense. And here, assume that this is the table that you have created in the data analysis section. Okay. Do you support what is the relationship between A and B in your opinion? What is the relationship between B and C and A and C in your opinion? So first of all, when I have A, when I have 3, it's high, so medium high. It doesn't help me that much perhaps. When I have 7, it's medium again. When I have 1, I have low. So I cannot guess any good relationships, between the two. How about A and C? When 7, it's 0. When it's 1, it's 1. So I can say that apparently they have a kind of negative influence on one another, or it's a negative correlation between the two. And you can do the same for construct B and C. So most of the time it will be difficult. That's why I ask you to have extreme values for these constructs so that data analysis would be easier for you. Okay, I don't see any questions. So at the end, I want to give you some general guidelines. Follow a great published case study. As for explanatory case study, Rich and Bembasa 2000 is a great one. As for exploratory case study, Eisenhardt 1989 is a great one. So if you selected either of these two, go for the greatest published case study there. When you read, I read your thesis, I would like you to refer to Dubé and Paré and Yin. There are many years, different textbooks. And if you have an exploratory case study, I would like to see Eisenhardt there as well. You show that you have a good understanding of the methodologies. Have a case study protocol. I already mentioned this, what this is, is quite easy, having interviews, selection criteria. These are called case study protocol. And use the checklist I have created. I'm going to upload a checklist there. If you cannot satisfy them, have good excuse for each criterion and just mention that as a limitation of your study. It doesn't mean that you have to fulfill all of them. Some of them cannot be fulfilled in 4 months or in a thesis that you are doing. Okay, with that, we get to the end of this this session on positivist case study. Thank for bearing with me and listening to my presentation on this. If you have any question, I would try to answer them. Okay, let me pause this here.